Hello everyone, how's it going? In this video, I'm going to really highlight the importance of speaking to somebody who gets it. OCD is a very complex disorder with all the intricacies, all the complexities, the nuances, the ins and outs of how it operates. Because if you don't fully have it, if you haven't been through the OCD wars, the battlefield, the trenches, been in the trenches of OCD, if you haven't been through that and come out the other end, it is going to be very, very hard to understand what's going on. The ups and downs, the bumps along the journey, the ways it's latching, the latching attempts, the latching mechanism of how it can feel, all the symptoms, the intrusive thoughts, the intrusive urges, the intrusive names, the intrusive dreams, all the feelings, the chronic guilt and shame, the depersonalization, the derealization, the disassociation, all the feelings that come with it. Okay, there can be many, I can list many. All the physical sensations, all the physical anxiety. Okay, I felt like I could hardly function when I had severe chronic OCD. Getting through the day was the most difficult task. Getting through the next 10 minutes was the most difficult task. So it's very hard to fully grasp and understand how it's operating if you haven't had it. Now, by no means am I downplaying or belittling anybody that's trying to help you that doesn't have it, because I'm sure their intentions are very well. I'm sure they are. I do not doubt that for a second. But I just find it very, very difficult for somebody to give genuine, great, helpful advice if they haven't overcome OCD themselves. That's not a dig at anybody. That's not insulting anybody. But that's just being very realistic. That's just having a very realistic approach to OCD recovery. Okay, an example that I give is that if I wanted to speak to somebody who suffered during the Holocaust, okay, I've just actually finished reading a book called The Happiest Man on Earth by Eddie Jacku, and that's about the beautiful life of an Auschwitz survivor, of how he went through the suffering, how he came out the other end, all the horrendous atrocities he witnessed, and how he changed his meaning of life, if you wish, and his purpose of life around the suffering he went through. Same as the fourth book on our reading list, Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, also about an Auschwitz survivor. And I'd want to read books on what they've written. I can speak to a historian, yes, and I'm sure that their knowledge and their insight is amazing. I'm sure it is. But if you speak to somebody that's had the experience of it, okay, the genuine forefront experience of it, they've lived it, they've been through it, they've lived and breathed the experience they're talking about, that's when I'm going to be more invested by it and to take it in and understand, wow, what actually happened. And even I can understand it. I can't grasp it. I can't comprehend it. No way. I can read all the books all I want on all kinds of wars and holocausts and suffering and all kinds of illnesses. I can read all the books on it, but I've never actually had it and been through it and suffered and experienced it. I'm not going to fully grasp it. Okay? It's like in World War II, for example, I'd want to speak to somebody that's been in the battlefield, been on the battlefield and come out the other end and survived it, rather than a historian telling me. I'm sure the historian can give me some amazing insight. I'm not doubting that for a second. But what I'm trying to tell you is that somebody who's been through it, has gone through it step by step, they experienced all the ins and outs of it, all the ups and downs, all the intricacies of it, that's when you're going to feel like you're really understanding what's going on. But even then, I ain't going to fully grasp it because I haven't been through it myself. So I'm trying to show you that with OCD, that somebody could read all the books, somebody can complete all of essays on OCD, but to fully grasp it and to advise the tools and the steps to overcome it, it's going to be very, very difficult. Because let's say you've got a very obscure theme or a fear that maybe it's a taboo related theme. Maybe it's a sensory motor related theme where you're stuck on your saliva, you're blinking, you're swallowing, you're breathing. And it can be very difficult for one to fully understand that if not only have they had it, but don't have a very high knowledge of how it operates. Because many calls that I jump on, because I'm a coach, so I have coaching calls, people that I coach, And if I didn't have an understanding of OCD, some calls I would be baffled. I'd be thinking, well, how has it done that? But because I have OCD myself, I can see exactly what's going on and how it's latching to many different things in the brain and how it's linking things, how it's connecting things, how it leads to that, how this belief can lead to that, how this compulsion, although it can be very subtle and almost hidden at times, how that is actually keeping that sufferer stuck because they're reluctant to give up that compulsion because it may be due to safety, it may be due to avoidance, maybe they're chasing certainty, maybe they're clinging on to that compulsion for relief. Okay, so it's going to take an OCD sufferer to know one and also to help somebody overcome it. Because this is why Rob's page really stuck out for me, the OCD Recovery page. Okay, because I tried to get help from all kinds of different therapies, talking therapy. I tried to see a specialist, and they were very well intentioned. I'm not downing them; they were very well intentioned, but I felt like a test subject. I felt like, what's this guy talking about? I don't quite understand what he means. And plus, you get reassurance, you get given advice that's actually going to keep you stuck and make you worse, right? It's like if I was trying to recover from a drug addiction and I'm getting help to become sober, and they go, all right, Sam, in you come. Before we start, or as you're talking, we're going to load you up on drugs just to keep you going. We're going to load you up on the thing you're trying to get sober of, right? If I was struggling with alcoholism, it'd be me going down the pub and drinking 6 pints whilst trying to get sober. So although I may be talking about the subject, trying to get better somebody that understands how alcoholism is working, but then the advice you're given or the booze that you're given is actually keeping you stuck. Okay, and I'm trying to link this with OCD because if I explain what was happening to me, I would explain the thoughts I was having, the intrusive thoughts that I was having, of how I was seeking reassurance, how I was confessing everything. And then they would tend to reply, you've done nothing wrong. You're not your thoughts. This is just OCD. Okay, nice to know. And it's very valid to know that how there is OCD and how it's operating, but isn't going to help. Okay. Even just the smallest amount of insight of how OCD is operating in the brain isn't going to help you overcome it. You're going to want somebody that's been through the wars, that's been on the battlefield of OCD, that knows how it tries to pull you back in. All the cheeky, subtle, crafty compulsions of how that keeps you stuck in that cycle. The fear of fear angle. How the compulsions, such as the seeking reassurance, the confessing, how that intense grip pulls you in. How the urge is going to feel so incredibly high, you can't see any way how you're going to resist that urge. Okay, same as when you're given into unhealthy addictive behaviours. How when we indulge with that, we're fooled by the brain that this is going to be the last time, or you can justify this, or you're going to enjoy this, or this is just one more time, or it's only harmless, it's fine. But the problem is that pull is what keeps you in, and OCD is the same. That pull to do the compulsion, because you've got the illusion of certainty, you've got the illusionary safety element that if you do this compulsion, it'll keep you safe. No. That compulsion and these compulsions that you're doing, because one compulsion isn't harmless, one compulsion isn't innocent, it spreads and spreads and spreads, and before you know it, it's stuck in the mental prison and the mental trap of OCD. So when it pulls you in, you then fall for the trap, you fall for the bluff, you fall for the certainty illusion, and then you're stuck. It's got you trapped in again, okay? And what I tend to find, once I was doing really well cutting compulsions, once I was pulled back in, the motivation went, and I was doing loads of compulsions over and over again because it kept pulling me back in, and that was how it used to do it. It used to convince me that this one's different, this one's real, this one's the exception. Many times people come into me and they're absolutely convinced that theirs is real, but I'm not on the call to work out whether it's real or not. I'm on the call to work out, even if it were real, how you can learn to unconditionally accept yourself and break it down and still resist compulsions. Because I'm judging progress, and I'm a true believer in somebody will make genuine progress with their OCD if they judge their progress on two things. They judge it on how their perspectives are looking, so their irrational beliefs that they're still clinging on to, the core fears, so their perspectives around their core fears, how their beliefs are looking, their perceptions, their worst case scenarios, so how they're viewing that, their outlook on that, their gratitude. So the belief element, okay, so that's belief work. That's the internal belief work of how you view things. And number two, the compulsions that they're still choosing to engage with. If the OCD sufferer is still performing compulsions, they cannot expect to make much progress and thus recover. Because they can't. It's like somebody who's trying to get sober from alcohol, still drinking whilst trying to get sober. It's not going to work, okay? And compulsions are very similar. So I judge it on that. So my focus as a coach is changing the perspectives that's keeping you stuck, the faulty, irrational perspectives, the irrational, rigid, black and white demands, the all or nothing way of thinking, the irrational, catastrophic thinking, the low frustration tolerance. That's going to keep you stuck. If you've got a very low frustration tolerance, you're going to find it very, very difficult to overcome OCD, because OCD will involve so much discomfort and so much frustration. Hence why it's important to speak to somebody that's been there, that understands it, and understands all the frustration involved. I tend to root out the overgeneralized way of thinking, the undeservingness, the unfairness, all that kind of victimizing way of thinking, okay? So overgeneralized meaning that completely writing yourself off. So let's say, for example, you lose your job and you feel totally depressed for losing your job. Well, that tends to stem from, if I've lost my job on one occasion, I will never get a good job again. And I will always fail at getting a job. Okay, that's how that can work. Okay, and ultimately, I'm going to point out pretty quickly on the first call. If you've come in coaching calls with me, what I tend to do is point out the self-rating, the self-downing immediately. And usually, because people haven't read the first book yet, when they've come in, they're like, okay, what does that mean? So the self-downing is how we rate ourselves. We down ourselves, we hate ourselves, we loathe ourselves, we lambast ourselves by saying, I'm bad, I'm worthless, I'm no good, I'm undeserving, I'm evil, I'm inadequate, I'm inferior. All those kinds of ratings that lead to feelings of inferiority, depression, shame, panic, guilt, anxiety, low mood, and so on. So that's very important. Maybe they're struggling with anger. So I'm going to root out their conditional other acceptance. So maybe rating other people, writing others off. They are bad. They are worthless. They are wrong. I need to prove that I'm right. So maybe they're getting very angry towards them and is actually sacrificing themselves. Maybe they're putting themselves in a very difficult, dangerous situation due to their anger. So perhaps they're trying to work on their anger, and that's going to stem from beliefs and the other downing element, okay, downing others. And just when somebody is very depressed, I don't know anybody that's come in to me that isn't thinking irrationally and they're not depressed. Because people who are suffering with depression, and I suffered with depression myself, there will be irrational beliefs. I know it can feel automatic. I know we get so bogged down, it feels like it's just a way of living. I understand that. I've been through that. I've totally lived with that myself. But when you really start dissecting it and ripping it apart and taking it apart bit by bit, you start uncovering and untangling all the different irrational beliefs at play. My depression stemmed from my conditional life acceptance, saying life isn't worthwhile if I feel like this. If I am worthless, then my life is over. My life is shit. My life is meaningless. What's the point? So then you're going to go down the helpless, hopeless, depressive cycle. Everything that you do feels totally pointless and a waste of time. Okay, so anything that you try and look forward to, nope, that's zapped out because you're not going to be able to enjoy it. Life's going to be shit. You've done this thing in the past. You're having these intrusive thoughts. You're a terrible person. You're a worthless person. You felt like shit last time. You're always going to feel like shit. All these ways of thinking, okay, will fuel those feelings of depression. So this is why it is extra critical to reach out for somebody that gets it. Somebody that's been through it, okay? I cannot highlight that enough. This isn't a sales pitch. I'm not here advertising myself. Hey, look, me, I've been through it. Because I'm talking from personal experience here, right? I would not have recovered from OCD if I didn't speak to somebody that understood it. I spoke to Robert Bray, the founder of OCD Recovery. I spoke to him. He understood OCD, if I could tell by the work that he was doing, the post on Instagram, the tweets, all the kinds of YouTube videos he was doing, his knowledge on OCD. I could understand that this guy knew what he was talking about. He knew how OCD worked, the POCD, the harm OCD, the real event false memory, the contamination OCD, existential, sensory motor. all the themes that aren't spoken about because they're not widely understood. They're very misunderstood in the broad anxiety community, because you're going to take to really suffer from that to fully get it. Okay, it takes an OCD sufferer to know an OCD sufferer, and also to overcome OCD. It's going to take somebody that's been there and been through the trenches and been through the wars of OCD, been on that mental, internal, torturous battlefield, and come out the other end. That's what's going to really help you. Okay, and by no means am I downing anybody that's trying to help you, because they are very well intentioned, and I'm sure they mean their best interests, or your health, your mental health, your OCD recovery is certainly in their best interest. But the problem is that can be detrimental, because if you're then getting reassurance, if you're then getting poor advice, if you're then getting advice that's actually going to hold you back with the reassurance, with the constant confession. I read something the other day where people were allowing the occasional reassurance. That isn't going to work. That's allowing the drug addict the occasional heroin injection. That's like allowing the alcoholic the occasional bender, the 10 pints, the 12 pints, the session. It isn't going to work, okay? You've got to be very, very strict, okay? So compassion is key, but also tough love is important in order to overcome OCD, and by the guidance and the coaching from somebody that's been through it themselves. That's super important. If you are interested in one-to-one coaching calls, please email phil@ocdrecovery.com. I'm a coach here. My name's Sam. You've got Rob, the founder of OCD Recovery, Nick, Momin, and Gemma, all doing coaching calls here. So please email Phil to get in touch, and we can book you in as soon as possible as our schedule allows. Looking forward to speaking to you. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please leave a like, and we'll speak again. Bye-bye.